All right, Lauren, thank you so much. Joining us tonight to talk about this is Travis County GOP Chairman Matt Mackowiak and Ed Espinoza from Progress, Texas. Thank you both for being here.
Pleasure. Good to be here.
Matt, what are your thoughts on Senator Booker's release of what he thought were confidential documents on Judge Brett Kavanaugh? Do you think this will set back his confirmation in any way?
No, I don't think it'll set back confirmation. I think it may set back Cory Booker's chances of ever being president of the United States. This was a stunt, and it wasn't even well executed. In some ways, it defies parody. He thought he was releasing something that had already been released. He thought the thing he was releasing was going to hurt Kavanaugh, and in fact, it helped him. It showed that he did not think race should be applied in national security issues, which is what the email showed from Kavanaugh. So kudos to our senior senator from Texas, John Cornyn, for calling out this ridiculous stunt as he did. It is unbecoming a senator to release classified information, confidential information. You know, this kind of thing matters in the Senate. The relationships between senators matters, and I think we're seeing a hyper-partisan atmosphere that is not only a bad precedent, but is really regrettable.
Ed, what are your thoughts on what happened today? What is the strategy here?
So let's go back to talking about the stunt at first. If Cory Booker is guilty of a stunt, it's in response to a Republican stunt in which they didn't even give the documents to the Democratic senators, roughly half of the U.S. Senate, until the night before the actual hearing. That's a problem because they don't even have any time to go over the documents to ask him these questions. Some of the things that were in those documents are not anything that would ever be considered committee classified. These are things that more likely looked like they were to protect the nominee from potential embarrassment. And I think that point is underscored by the fact that Republicans then changed the status of the documents and made them no longer committee classified. If we're going to have stunts, there's guiltiness, there's guilt on both sides here. Let's get through this. There are still problems with Kavanaugh, and there's still time for this hearing to play out.
Moving on to another subject, let's talk about that op-ed by a White House insider that was printed in the New York Times. Matt, the president obviously upset about it. What are your thoughts, and do you think anything will come from that?
So we actually don't know that it was a White House insider. We know that the New York Times is describing the person as a so-called senior administration official. That could be the Vice President of the United States, or it could be someone 7 layers down in some bureaucracy somewhere. And honestly, that to me is the biggest problem that I have with this. I don't understand why the paper of record, the New York Times, would publish an anonymous op-ed, given that you don't know who it is, you don't know what their credibility is, you don't know what their role is. Look, that said, a lot of the comments that were in there, as Senator Bob Corker, the retiring senator of Tennessee, said today, in some ways aren't that shocking, right? There's been some chaos in this White House. There have been some questions about decisions and how decisions are made. I don't think this op-ed matters at all. There's no one in middle America who wasn't sure how they felt about Donald Trump and read that op-ed in the New York Times and now is going to either him. I think it does go to Trump's case that the media is biased against him. I think it makes that case for him.
Ed, what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, the New York Times knows who wrote this op-ed. What do you think about what was said and the response?
Look, we don't know who said it. We don't know who wrote it. We don't know who it was. We may never know who it was. But what we do know is that what we're seeing is not unique. It's not the first time we've seen this. Former Secretary of State Rex Richardson was rumored to have said some things about the president. Dan Coates was blindsided by things the president has said while he was on stage talking about national security. You have had John McCain, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, all Republican leaders who have had said things that were extremely critical of this president, basically saying he is incapable of doing his job. And if that's the case, then what these cabinet members need to do is they need to invoke the 25th Amendment and replace the president. Look, this guy is a disaster, and he is hurting not only his party, he's hurting the country. That's what this memo had to do with. And the thing is, again, I'll go back to this. It's not a single memo. This is a trend coming from many places within the White House and within the Republican establishment right now.
All right, we are out of time, but Ed, Matt, thank you both for coming in tonight and sharing your perspectives with us tonight.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And coming up, sending out text messages is part of Beto O'Rourke's campaign, but the content of this one is what's in question. It is asking Texans to commit voter fraud to help O'Rourke's candidacy, why his campaign says don't be fooled by an imposter. That's next on Fox 7 Austin, News at 9.